18, 19-year-old Alicia, she really didn't have the time yet or the opportunity yet to become doubtful, I'll say. Like,
Yeah.
Of course, we all go through different moments in our life, and we surely feel doubt and insecurity and all those things, and that's super natural. But I think she had like that 19-year-old Alicia had a certain confidence about her that was really sure. She knew what she didn't want. She knew who she didn't want to be. She wasn't trying to bend too much to be that person that other people might have thought would do better for her, because she was very, 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 very clear. And she hadn't yet had the taste of acknowledgement to it, to then start to change or to feel the need to please or whatever happens. I think sometimes when in different parts of our life we find ourselves in, and for me, I think after that time, some of me changed in a way. And I realized that now I've found my way back to where I was then. And I found that to be so interesting because in a way I started out more clearly myself and then maybe lost my way through the middle.
Interesting.
And then have found that I've been able to find my way back. And when I look at myself today and I'm like, oh, okay, I realize I'm most close to the original me, which was probably, right before everything started to pick up, take off, success and things like that. And so that's to me really, really interesting, an interesting revelation. And that makes me smile because in a way I kind of already had it.
Yeah. That's so funny, isn't it? When you realize that, it's crazy to think that it's almost a process of unlearning and rewiring and reconnecting back to who we were or what we knew, and letting go of all the noise and the layers, the dirt. And you talk about in part 1 of the book, you talk about, and you say this, and when you say it through the story you share, it's so powerful when you talk about, I no longer belong to myself. And when you said that, and what you're sharing around that space, the question I had is, when people say the phrase, don't sell your soul to achieve your dream, how do you interpret that now? Like, how do you interpret that in context of you saying, I no longer belong to myself?
I think when you hear that phrase, don't sell your soul, you automatically assume that it has to do with financially, right? Mm-hmm. You automatically assume that, people might offer you some absorbent amount of money and to do all these things that maybe you don't want to do. And so automatically you kind of think financially, don't sell your soul, literally don't sell it for a certain number, which is a great guiding light. And I agree with that as well, because I think that a lot of times when I'm making choices that have a financial incentive, a lot of the times I'll ask myself, if all the money was off the table, do you want to do this? If you had to do this for free tomorrow, would you be passionate about it? And to me, that's like the equalizing space and question that really makes sure that your soul and spirit and heart is in the right place, and that you actually are in love with something, but going back to the point, that's not the point. I digress. The point of
it's beautiful. Keep doing it. Be free flow. Beautiful.
The point of what you asked was, so I think when I hear don't sell your soul, I don't think so much financially. I think more spiritually, because there is a wealth and a richness that you have by protecting the beauty of who you are and your sanity and your wellness and the specialness of who you are. And each of us are special in this really beautiful, one of a kind way. And a lot of the times I think you'll find, and I found, that in order to maybe ensure that this dream that I've always had could be real or be obtainable or continue on or whatever, I didn't value enough the beauty and the safety and the importance of my worth and my the need of being good to myself. And so in those ways, that's why I didn't belong to myself, because I started to want to do things from the best intentions, by the way. I did it because I wanted good things to come from it. I wanted people to be happy. I thought it would make people feel good. You know, it was all from the best intentions, but I didn't put myself first in that equation. And therefore, in some ways, you know, I started to not belong to myself.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful distinction you've made there between selling your soul usually being a financial reference, or, you know, I think you're spot on. That's what we usually think. We go, okay, that means I'm not going to sell out financially. Right. What you thought about is so much more of an existential, spiritual question. And I think that that's a really beautiful distinction that are not a lot of people make. And it almost feels like the one you're more tested on. And that's actually harder to maintain, because you may still be able to stick to your passion. But I'm fascinated that since you were 4 years old, there were two constants I noticed in your life. So one was, and I wanted to share both of them because I think both I admire in different ways. One of them was, you say you knew that one day you'd be a singer, and you knew that in your gut since you were 4. And I'm fascinated by how you not knew that, because I think you're right. I think when we're younger, we do know things. But what I'm intrigued by is what made you trust your intuition at that age? Because I think when we're young, we're more malleable and moldable, and we're more go along with what society or family or friends or noise tells us. But you knew, but what was it that helped you continue to commit and follow that?
I didn't feel that. You know, I think that back to this similar theme about, like, we kind of start out knowing the truth, and then we start learning the lies, and the lies start to get in the way and start to make it really, or inheriting the lies maybe. And, you know, and again, it's not because somebody actually lied to us. It's because they just told us what they knew, and what they knew was probably not really the truth either. And each person has their own truth anyway. And so it really doesn't matter what other people tell you, because you have to find your own truth, and each person's truth is different. And so I think that at that 4-year-old place, I was very, very clear. I was super clear. I didn't have that interference yet. I didn't have that kind of societal oppression yet, because I was just so pure and so, you know, open. And my mother has always been a performer. And I remember us doing, like, there were these cute little talent shows at my little kindergarten, and we would perform together, and we'd practice these different routines, and it'd be me and her. And she's such a performer, and she's always, you know, had such a passion for the arts, and that's what she came to New York to do. And, you know, so in so many ways, I've always said that I am her dream manifested in some way. And so she always had that spirit to her. And I think because that was her dream as well, she was excited when she saw that spark in me too, you know? And so we just were a good match, you know, we just were a good match. So I think it wasn't until later that I started to get out of that, you know, sweet, innocent, that really, I think, where this truth lives. Just because, you know, you start meeting more people and you start being more exposed to different things. And then maybe you start, the doubt creeps in, or the fear creeps in, or the, you know, whatever else comes in to try to unseat us. But in that 4-year-old space, I definitely knew, and there was no doubt. And I'm clear about that.
Yeah, and I love what you said there. We start with the truth, and then we learn the lies, or we inherit the lies. I think that's such a beautiful statement. It's poetic, but it's so true as well. And the other constant that I noticed in your life as I was reading through the pages was your friendship with Erica since you were 4.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I'm blown away by anyone who can have a friendship that lasts the changes of life, the seasons of life, the ups and downs of life, like, and you work together, right?
Yes, we
Yeah,
did. There's
and so
so many seasons. There's
yeah.
so
So
many seasons we shared.
how do you maintain a friendship through that time since 4 years old? Someone who's known you your whole life, basically. Like, tell me what that's like through the journey you've had of maintaining a friend who's been a part of your life the whole way.
Yeah, I think it was quite natural. We knew each other from very young, and just because her family lived in the building that I lived in, and so that's how we kind of connected and met, and then we had similar trajectory, just meeting up in that way, and then we were reintroduced to each other um, later when she was in college, and her uncle Norman was the one that said, hey, Erica is doing music, and I know you're doing music, and maybe you guys can connect. And so we reconnected because we already knew each other, and then we realized how much we understood each other, which I think is so rare. It's like I can literally count on my one hand the amount of people that actually understand me, and I'm sure that I understand them, and there's like a real connection there that's so genuine and pure. So when that happens, that it's rare and it's special, and so from there we just continue to conversate, and she was really smart in finishing college, and I was just about to embark on this whole crazy world and touring, and it just, the timing was just as it was meant to be. And so then we transitioned from kind of the friend only to the friend and colleague, and growing together in this space. And it was very comforting for me because it was nice for me to have somebody that I knew and trusted and felt close to my age and to my experience and that type of thing. And so it just was all timing, man. So I think that for most of it, it was quite easy. As I think the best relationships are. You don't have to, sure, all relationships take work to maintain, to understand, to have the communication that's necessary for them, but I think the best relationships are always quite easy and fluid. And so that was one of them.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. You say that the best relationships are generally meant to flow naturally. Like, it's almost like it shouldn't have to be incredibly hard work.
Right. Yeah. That's what I find. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's a nice way to look at it, because I almost feel like we're programmed as humans to believe, like, if we're working harder for something, then it's more important. You know what I mean? Like, we kind
my gosh. I so understand that.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like, we feel like that. We feel like if I'm not working hard, then it can't be worth it. Like, we have that conditioning, that storytelling in our mind. And so sometimes I feel like people stay in relationships because it's harder work, and they wear that as the badge of honor. And we see that as like, we've achieved something today.
Oh my gosh. It's so, no, you're so right. And in fact, in the, more recently, have I truly, like in the past 4 years, to be honest, have I truly said, like, if it's not flowing, I'm not doing it. Because I had to finally understand that it's like this whole idea is swimming upstream, and this whole idea of like, it's just the most difficult thing ever. And yet we still fight for it and fight for it and fight for it. I did that for so long. And finally I realized, like, wait, if it's not flowing, it's not flowing for a reason.
Yeah.
But it's quite hard. It's quite hard because even, but even to, 2 months ago when I was preparing for the Grammys, I had, the hosting, all of my ideas for that. And this one very particular idea that I had was absolutely not coming to life. And I could not let it go. I could not. I kept fighting and pushing and finding another way, and I'm going to find it and I won't give up on it. And I kept on. And I here I was telling myself previously that, if it doesn't flow, just let it go. But here I was back in that thing, this is worth it. I'm going to fight for it. I'm going to find it. They won't defeat me. I'm here. I'm going to do it. And finally it took my husband one night. He was like, Alicia, I'm watching you, and this thing is consuming you. I mean, you can't even think about anything else because all you're working on so hard is this thing that it's obviously not coming together. I think you should let it go. And he finally had to bring me back to like my own promise to myself.
Yeah, wow. It's so crazy that you touched on that, because I'd actually taken an excerpt out of the book that I wanted to read to the audience, because it just really, like, it was like a punch in the gut when I was reading it in a good way. And it was exactly this piece. So this is reading from the book, more myself. And Alicia says, oh, wait, I'm going to find the exact piece that I love. Here we go. So,
This is cool.
sorry, it would be much better in your voice, but I'm reading it out because I picked it. But it's, at the time, I wouldn't have described it that way, nor did I truly understand that there was a flow with my name on it. But from this side of life, I can see how every moment, every experience, every pivot, even my supposed missteps have been life's way of getting me where I have always been meant to go. Rather than resisting the current, I've learned to surrender. And, I thought that was absolutely beautiful. So I guess my question there is, like, how do you because I agree with you on both sides, and I see both in myself too. And I want to learn from you here. How do you know when too much is too much for yourself? And I don't mean as a principle, I mean as a principle for you. How do you know when it's worth the fight? Because there are times in this book where you have to stand up for your values. You had to believe in what you're doing. And there are times where you're like, actually, I just have to surrender. How do you find that balance between those two places?
Man, I still struggle with that constantly.
Me too.
To be honest, I sometimes I'm so clear, and I know, this isn't it, and I have to let it go. It's better to let it go. Sometimes I'm so clear, and a lot of times it takes me quite a while, and I find myself, like I just explained, having to remember and relearn what I thought I already knew. And I thought I already knew I didn't want to fight or have to go against the flow, So sometimes it's quite clear, and sometimes it's not as clear to me. And I guess that's okay, that's okay. But I know that if I feel it, if I'm feeling, I know I definitely have learned to trust really much more that sensation in the gut, that thing that kind of just really tells you no, or yes, I mean, whatever it is. I've definitely learned to pay a lot more attention to that, and that is a part of the piece of what you're asking. Like, how do you know when it's enough, or what's your own personal kind of barometer there? But I think that that's personally something that I'm constantly working through, to really drop into to what I know to be true. And, because I think we're all around so much noise, and we're around so many damn opinions. Like, Lord, the amount of opinions, it's like, how do you navigate yourself through all the opinions? Because part of it is great. It's wonderful to have these different perspectives, and it feeds you, and you kind of can see it from different points of view. And that's really great. But then there's another part of it that it can just become so noisy. So to drop into that space in your gut that literally, like, if you don't feel it, you do know you don't feel it. You do know that. And you can try to convince. I'm a good convincer. I try to convince myself that I feel it, and I try to explain in myself, and I try to rationalize myself. But I do know when I'm not feeling it. And so I'm learning much better to just be comfortable with that, and to know that that's for a reason. And even if I don't understand that reason right now, there's a reason why it's not feeling right, and to really just trust that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I appreciate your honesty with that. It is such a hard thing to know. And that's why I asked you, because I think we all struggle with that. In where the book gets starts to get really just where you just open up even more, and you get such an intimate look into how you've got to where you are today and the relationships in your life. In one of the chapters, you talk about your relationship with Carrie. And what I find fascinating about that is just how you're able to understand how different people come into your life for different reasons. And you talk about how women and men, but we choose someone, you talk about women specifically, you talk about you choose someone that's either like your father or not like your father, right? Like that kind of extreme. And a lot of people can relate to that. And, me and my wife often talk about that. We talk about the similar traits we have to our parents and how I complement some of those things that she loves in her father, or, the differences that we have. And we start to see that. Tell me what you were able to learn from these different people in your life at different times that helped you with the relationship you have now, right? You've got 2 beautiful kids and you're happily married. Like, what were the things that you learned that helped you build the relationship you have now?
Oh man. And just overall with anyone and everyone? Specifically?
Wherever you want to go with it, wherever you feel comfortable to go with it.
So what situations or what relationships have shown me or helped me to get to where I am now, where I'm able to have a really healthy, just loving, reciprocal relationship is kind of what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what I mean is... Sorry if I'm not explaining myself well. What I mean is that when you talk about your relationship with Kerry and you talk about, how you feel that how he was brought into your life to teach you certain things. So I'm fascinated by what some of those lessons were and how they continue to be useful in your life now.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So, I mean, the biggest one, definitely. And it's just so incredible. And again, back to that self-reflection and back to that being able to look at it from this clear vantage point now. It's so apparent what Kerry and I were brought together to create, and what he was brought to teach me was very, very, very important, deep stuff. And I know one of the stories that I share in the book is, I like I said, we inherit all these things, and I had this habit of that my mother she does all the time, and it's kind of like this self-deprecating thing that I guess is like a little bit of, it's a little bit of like takes the weight off, and kind of maybe it's sort of a joke, but it's actually, just and I would do this thing that I picked up from her where I would say, well, my luck. And it was almost like it's almost like protection, so that if something didn't go right, I already knew that was okay, and well, because my luck, so that's probably, it was like a disclaimer or something, and I didn't even know I was doing that, and I didn't even realize I was doing it, and it became just a habitual thing that I would say, and so we'd be talking, and I was like, well, because my luck, and he was like, why do you say that? And I was like, what? And he was like, what is making you say that? And I was like, what are you talking about? talking about? It's like, it's not even that serious what he's talking about. And he really pointed out to me that, you know, by me using those words, I was basically asking the universe to give me bad luck.
Yeah.
Because I was saying that, well, since I was claiming that my luck was not good.
Yeah.
And I was doing it in a joking manner that I thought was, that I had picked up. So I didn't think it was a big deal. But in actuality, it was blocking me. And I mean, I was probably at the time like 16.
Wow.
And I was able to receive that message so loud and clear, you know, from him. And I know that it changed the trajectory because I started to learn early the power of words and how what you say is definitely 1,000,000% what you're going to get. I mean, and so I didn't know that. And so when he opened my eyes to that, it really changed a lot for me. And so things like that, he really, you know, he gave me those kind of gifts, and it really helped to shape a lot of my, you know, the way that I looked at things and the way that I started to say things, and what I would remove from my vocabulary or just remove from the things that I learned, you know, before him. So there's so much that he shared with me and taught me that I know has contributed to my, you know, my mindset, the way I see things.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It's when you talk about in the book and you talk about just how it's shocking to me because the things that you're talking about, and then I look at how old you are in that section, I'm like, what? No way. Like, you know, it's almost like that there's so much wisdom in your soul and you're so mature, and then at the same time you're reflecting so deeply at, you know, choices or decisions that you saw leading you the wrong way. And it's so interesting just to see that juxtaposition of just rechecking. I'm like, oh wow, you're only 16 then, you know, and there's so much life experience there. And one of the things I love about the book that I think has been done beautifully is you have these short notes at the beginning of some of the chapters